God bless you, dear ones. Welcome to the Word with Chester. Today we'll begin study in Deuteronomy Chapter 33. I am grateful to each of you for taking of your valuable time to log on to watch this ministry. I want you to know every time I see your name or you give me a like or a share on the World Wide Web, I appreciate you. God is so good to us, and I appreciate Him for just giving us our life, our health, and our strength. He's a wonder to me, and I appreciate God so very, very much. Well, in our last lesson, Moses was ordered up to Mount Nebo, and God had just let him know that he was going to die. You have to understand, Moses accepted that fact. You got to get the picture. When you really are led and used of God, you accept His word, whether you might not like it or somebody else might not like it. But you got to understand, if God says it is going to be anyway, so you might as well just say yes to the will of the Lord. And Moses was ordered up to Mount Nebo. And here in chapter 33, Moses is actually blessing the people. And what do you have to understand the importance of a blessing from God's manservants and even the head of your house. If they're a man of God or a person of God, you have to understand that blessing is important to you. Everybody's not like me, and I'm not trying to tell everybody to be like me, but my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, when they're born, I'll go pray over them and ask God to bless them through their lives and do my best to speak blessings upon them. Why? Because I want to see them successful in everything that they do. And here Moses is getting ready to speak a blessing on the children of Israel. And you say, well, you got to get the picture. It's not for you and I to understand everything. So I try to think, I read all of this, all of the chapters up until this point, and nobody ever said, thank you, Moses. Moses didn't get an anniversary service or any type of likes and all of that type of thing, but yet he did the will of God, and that's what you and I need to know and focus on. That Moses did the will of God, and that's what we need to grasp. That regardless to what the situation is, whether you're getting accolades or not, you should just do the will of God. And when you do the will of God, God will smile on you. God has a way of blessing you, and so I want you to get that picture. Now here Moses is getting ready to speak blessings on the children of Israel, and it's a good trait of a leader to learn how to bless the people. Even when they don't treat you so well. Moses could have got the attitude, you all gave me so many headaches coming across here these 40 years. You did so many things, not only against me, but against God. Why should I bless you? But you got to get the picture. These are God's people, and God loves them. And you have to understand, any leader loves his people. He loves the people that are following him. And regardless to what they do and how they act, you still love them. You still love them. And so Moses loved the children of Israel, even though they didn't give him many accolades. I never read once that they gave him an anniversary service. I never read once that they gave Moses any type of celebration of being the great leader that he was. But you have to understand, Moses got his directly from God. And if you're a great leader, you will do all you can to bless your people, regardless to the situation. So here Moses is getting ready to bless all of the tribes, and we're going to read. As we read, you will hear that he's blessing the tribes of the children of Israel. Now we have received law under this point. Even in the song that Moses had wrote and taught the people, the children of Israel, there was law there. If they served the Lord, he would bless them, and if they did not serve the Lord, he would curse them. Here we're changing gears now to where Moses is getting ready to speak blessings on all of the tribes of the children of Israel. Now, shall we begin our reading in verse 1 of chapter 33? The Bible reads, and this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death. Now, what a title, the man of God. Now, that's a greater title than any other title you can get. Teacher, pastor, superintendent, bishop, on up the line, whatever you want to call a leader. That's the greatest title it is, the man of God, the man of God. And this is the blessings wherewith Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And he said, the Lord came from Sinai and rose up from Seir unto them, and shined forth from Mount Paran. And he came with 10,000s of saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for them. Yea, he loved the people. He loved the people. Now let's get that in your mind. He loved the people. All his saints are in thy land, and they sat down at thy feet. Everyone shall receive of thy word. Moses commanded the law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And he was king in Jeshurun when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. Now let's read verse 6. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. Can you get the picture? God is blessing them. Let Reuben live. And you have to understand this blessing is important to Reuben because there was some things that was prophesied against Reuben because of some of the sins that he had committed. Reuben had committed an abomination. He went into one of his father's concubines, if you remember reading, and slept with her. And God was very displeased with that because that is in the law as being an abomination. Verse 6 again, let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. I better read that again. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. He's speaking this blessing over the tribe of Reuben. Get the picture. Don't let them just be a few. You got to get the picture that he's speaking this blessing on Reuben. And you have to, I don't know if you recall all of our reading, what we have been reading, but you have to get the picture that there was some very negative things spoken unto the tribe of Reuben. But yet here Moses is saying, let him be blessed. And let him live and not die. And let not his men be few. In other words, let him multiply. Verse 7, and this is the blessing of Judah, he said, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him into his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou and help unto him from his enemies. Can you get the picture? Moses is speaking blessings on them. Verse 8, and of Levi he said, let thy Thummim of thy Urim be with thine Holy One, of whom thou didst test at at Massa, and with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah, thy Thummins. Well, maybe you don't get the fullness of that, but you can run a reference of that word Thummins, and thy Urim be with thy Holy One. In other words, thy light and thy reflection. Let it be with these. Let it be with these. Now let me read that again in verse 8. And of Levi he said, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One. Thy Holy One, whom thou didst test at Massa, and with whom thou did strive at the waters of Meribah. Who said unto his fathers and to his mothers, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. Well, he's speaking a real blessing on them. Why? Because they kept his covenant. They kept the covenant of the Lord. Shall we read on? I'm going to read on quickly today, if you don't mind. In verse 10, they shall teach Jacob thine ordinances and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee and hold burnt sacrifices upon thine altar. He's talking about Levi, and those of you that have been with us in our reading, you find that Levi was in charge of the tabernacle, and although the priesthood was given to the children of Aaron, well, to Aaron himself and his family, we have to understand that many times Levi carried out the priestly order because well, I won't go into a specific, but in so many words, the children of Aaron was not actually his children. They needed help. They could not do it all alone because the family, the entire nation of the children of Israel was so large. So we hear actually more about the Levites as time goes on than we do the priest themselves coming from Aaron. But I want you to get that picture, and as we read, I'm going to try to prove that point. So let me read in verse 10. Thou shalt teach Jacob thine ordinances, and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee, and hold burnt sacrifices upon thine altar. Well, this is the job of the children of Levi. Now let's read verse 11. Bless Lord his substance, and accept the work of his hand. Smite through him. Smite through the loins of them who rise against him, and of them who hate him, that they rise not again. In other words, anybody rise up against Levi, God, you take control and you just wipe them out, that they can't even rise up again. Shall I read that again in verse 11? Bless Lord the substance, and accept the work of his hand. Smite through the loins of them who rise against him, and of them who hate him, that they rise not again. Now that's pretty hard. God, you take control and you smite through them. Now verse 12, and of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. Between his shoulders. That's where the heart is. I want you to get the picture. God will dwell in his heart, and he will dwell in God's heart between his shoulders. Now let's read in verse 13. And of Joseph he said, blessed of the Lord be his land, for the precious things of heaven and the dew, and for the deep that stretches out beneath. Bless Joseph now. Let me reread that so I can get it a little more clear, possibly. And he said, and of Joseph he said, blessed of the Lord be his land where he lives, the land that's in his charge. Let the land be blessed for the precious things of heaven, for the dew, that means the rain, let it be precipitation there. Precipitation there, and for the deep that stretches out beneath. In other words, bless where he lives and bless the soil so that it will yield. In verse 14, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon. Now shall I read on in verse 15, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills. I'm going to continue reading, if you don't mind, in verse 16, and for the precious things of the earth, and fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him who dwelt in the bush. Let the blessings come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him who was separated from his brethren. Can you understand this special blessing that he's praying upon Joseph? And you have to get the picture here, and I hope you understand that actually out of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, get the picture, and you'll read more about Ephraim and Manasseh, but that is actually, when we read about them as we go forth in Scripture, you'll know that is from the tribe of Joseph. Now, Joseph was not raised up with them because he was sold down into slavery. Am I right about it? He was thrown in the pit, and then they took him out of the pit. He become a slave, and he come up and he was the head of Potiphar's house, and thrown back into prison. And then after being in prison for a while, because of the interpretation of the dream of two men, he was brought up and come to be the prime minister of Egypt, second only to the king himself. So you got to get that picture. But yet Moses here is blessing him. He's blessing not only for what his family would do in the future, but he's also blessing them, blessing him for what was done in the past and his contribution to the children of Israel. For you have to understand, if it wasn't for Joseph and his wisdom, they would have died from starvation, because the land was in a severe famine back in those days. It was in a severe famine before they went down into Egypt. So you have to recall all of these things as we read. Now, verse 17. His glory is like a firstling of the bullock, and his horn are like the horns of a wild ox. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are 10,000 of Ephraim, and they are thousands of Manasseh. Can you see these two boys? These are the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. Now let me continue reading. I'm going to try to complete this entire chapter today. In verse 18, and of Zebulun he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tent. Rejoice, you two. Rejoice. Now, verse 19, they shall call the people into the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifice of righteousness, for they shall suck the abundance of the sea, and the treasures hidden in the land, the abundance of the sea. In other words, great fishermen, and they'll know how to go out and bring in the things and the food values that are in the sea. They'll know how to bring it in. 19 again, they shall call the people into the mountain. They shall they shall offer sacrifice of righteousness, for they shall suck the abundance of the sea, and treasures hidden in the sand. The sea and the sand, they will get the treasures out of them and be a blessing to the children of Israel. Now, verse 20. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he who enlargeth Gad, and dwelleth like a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of his head. Now, teareth the arm of the crown of his head. Should I read that again? And of Gad he said, Blessed he who enlarges Gad. In other words, those that are a blessing to Gad or enlarge him, bless them. Bless those who enlarges Gad. He dwelleth like a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of his head. Now, verse 21, and he provided the first part for him, for himself, because there in a portion of the lawgiver was he seated, and he came with the heads of the people. He executed the righteousness of the Lord and his ordinances with Israel. Moses is pointing out the portion of what he did. Now, who was the lawgiver? The lawgiver was Moses, and he provided the first part for himself, because there in the portion in a portion of the lawgiver was he seated, and he became with the heads of the people. He executed the righteousness of the Lord and his ordinances with Israel. Now, verse 22. And of Dan he said, Dan is a lion's whelp, and he shall leap from Bashan. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessings of the Lord, possess thou the west and the south. Can you see how he's blessing each tribe? Verse 24. And of Asher he said, let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Speaking these blessings on all of the tribes of the children of Israel. In other words, he's saying to Asher, let him be blessed with children. Let him multiply. Let his tribe grow and be acceptable to his brethren. In other words, let his brethren accept him. You got to get the picture. It's a hard thing when your brethren don't accept you. It's a hard thing. So he's speaking this blessing upon Asher. Let his children let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Let him be blessed. That's all he's saying here. Now, verse 25, thy shoes shall be iron and bronze as thy days, so shall be thy strength be. I'll read that one more time so we can get real clarification out of it. Thy shoes shall be iron and bronze, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. In other words, as your days will be long, and your strength will be long. Can you get that picture from that verse? Now, verse 26. There is none like unto the God of Jeshurun, who rideth upon the heavens in thy help, and in his excellency on the sky. Please excuse me. Now let's read in let me read 26 again. There is none like unto the God of Jeshurun, who rideth upon the heavens in thy help, and in his excellency on on the sky. Can you get that picture? Let's read verse 27. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms, and he shall thrust out the enemy, but from before thee, and shall say, destroy them. Can you see he's blessing him that the Lord will be with him and even fight against his enemies when his enemies come out against him. Again, get the picture. He's talking in a future tense and blessing them. So when they go into the promised land, that the blessings of God will be with them and follow them. Let's read it, verse 28. And then shall dwell in safety alone. The fountain of Jacob shall be upon a land of grain and wine. Also, his heavens shall drop down dew. In other words, where you are, I'm going to make sure that you're blessed. You'll have plenty of water to water crops and to take care of your own needs. Everything you need is going to be there. I want to see you blessed. So Moses is speaking these blessings out upon them. In verse 29, happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people, saved by the Lord, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency, and thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. Can you get that picture? God used Moses to bless them, not just one family, but all of the families. He blessed all of them, and you'll see that if they unify and stay together, they'll be a blessing to each other. With all of the blessings that God used Moses to speak out on them, and you got to get the picture. God heard Moses. There's some folks that God hear their prayer, and they can bless you and they can curse you. You got to get that picture. So, in other words, you really need to treat them right. And I'm not going into a long drawn out about Moses and how he was treated, but you got to understand that Moses, he had the heart. He wanted to see them blessed. That's the reason he gave the law. That's the reason God used him to unify. God used him to bring them all of that distance to where they are. God used him, and we got to thank God for Moses. And the next chapter, it saddens me a little bit, but you got to get the picture. Whatever God says is going to be, and God had told Moses to bless the children of Israel. And as we go into the next chapter, which will be the last chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, you should be here. Please be here. I want you to hear. Moses is now getting ready to go up and just fulfill what God had told him. Well, I want you to understand that it's important for us to accept the will of God. Please be here on our next lesson, and God will bless you. I want you to know, dears, that I love you, and I'm committed to teach through this Bible. If you stay with us, you will have read completely through the Bible, verse by verse, and chapter by chapter, and your knowledge of God and the things of God will grow to an ultimate. My dears, I want you to know I love you. I love you with the love of the Lord. God bless you.